Mullet Madjack is an absolute treat of an experience to play. There you go, review done. I loaded this one up at the tail end of 2024 to unwind and kick back after a big year of playing those lengthy AAA games that would release all the other games in between that filled out that year, and it left me feeling like, shit, why didn't I play this game sooner? Mullet Madjack is such a vibe of an experience. It taps into that 80s vaporwave action hero aesthetic and perfectly oozes with the retro future anime settings, stylistic choices, and everything with its soundtrack and visual presentation that is just on point, but with gameplay elements that couple the likes of Post Void with a roguelike and provide an exhilarating gameplay loop that'll keep you hooked and have you losing track of time, because that sure as hell happened to me so many times playing this game. But it's easy to pick this one up and put it down if life calls and step away from your keyboard and then just come back, jump back right into action and not feel like you are like out of place or displaced or lost some sense of immersion. Mullet Madjack is just such an easy game to slide into, pick up and just play. And whether it's during the next sale or outright picking this one up, it is my opinion that especially if you are into FPS games and looking for time to kill, this game will not disappoint. And I'm here to tell you why Mullet Madjack is an absolute insane game and why it is so good and an absolute must play. So let's get into my video. So where's a better place for us to start than talking about the gameplay loop for Mullet Madjack, which will see you stepping into the shoes of Jack, climbing through a set of 10 floors to rescue a streamer who has been captured. You'll be working alongside an organization called Peace Corp, who is streaming this whole ordeal. So naturally, in turn for item enhancements, you'll be living on a 10-second timer, which thrusts you into this core gameplay loop. See, you'll jump from floor to floor, killing enemies in a plethora of unique ways, which in turn will increase the seconds on your 10-second lifespan. This creates a rhythm of gliding through each level, trying to shoot, kick, and cleverly kill an enemy that gets you to increase your lifespan and complete each floor as soon as possible. There is a level of building out Jack's arsenal too, like with any roguelike. As you progress through each floor, you'll be able to provide a perk or skill that works at increasing the time you have, or different types of weapons you can equip, or just like perks in general that help the overall run. One notable example of these perks in action is getting an extra second of time when you shoot an enemy in the balls. Legit some Robocop type shit. But there is something really great here with the way that Mullet Madjack divides these floors and overall levels. So each chapter is divided into a set of 10 floors, and with the 10th floor resulting in a boss encounter, which are mostly satisfying and will throw a interesting mechanic at you. In each of these different chapters, which is this set of 10 floors, will introduce a particular type of quirk or mechanic, whether it's different environmental hazards, new enemies that it throws into the mix, and then with each sequential chapter, meaning each time you get higher and higher by sets of 10, you'll get like the ante will be upped and there'll be new mechanics and new things that are introduced that you'll need to combat and need to understand with how enemies work and enemy types and different environmental hazards and how to like wall run and jump and things like this. It really does flesh out and it doesn't overstay its welcome for how long the game is. Overall, the amount of time to complete Mullet Madjack's story shouldn't run you more than 3 to 5 hours, depending on the difficulty that you are playing on. And overall, it does feel like a well-paced experience, and it has enough content there to stay its runtime, and it never really does feel like it wears out its welcome. The campaign moments and boss encounters are entertaining and varied too, and the mechanics and structure there, it holds the game together really nicely and makes it all feel very succinct. Speaking of variation, each floor that you progress through subsequently becomes more tricky, as I mentioned earlier, with you having to navigate new enemies and different appearances and different environmental hazards as well, which will all catch you out and make the game's complexity overall feel like it subtly grows through and like sequentially grows through each different iteration that you go through. It allows you to breathe fast and attack early on, but it slowly ramps up that difficulty and gets you acquainted with a new core mechanic and has you master that and think on your feet. It's overall a great, like, compact experience that has a lot of runtime, and with new modes that come out as well, like a boss rush mode and an infinite mode, there's no doubt a lot of people here that will be playing this game for a long time trying to master these mechanics. I'd like to just dive in and talk now about the overall vibes of Mullet Madjack, because at its core, I really do think this is the thing that makes this experience so special for me, and it's that this game is just oozing with style, but more so, it's in a charming way. It handles this sense of atmosphere and stylistic choices like that really do make this game feel like it was something from the 80s. It has this really particular type of anime style and how the characters look, and there's this certain type of soundtrack that accompanies it, and even just the way that those cutscenes are presented, it feels like just a product of a different era. But then it also has these modern liberties with its gameplay, and even just the way its overall like visual presentation is. It has this like surreal lens to it, with your protagonist Jack climbing floors and rescuing a captured streamer, and man, like living off a 10-second timer as well to bring in views, and man, it's just overall like it's a lot, and I've said a lot, and it's a bit all over the place, but man, the best way I can describe this game is like, you know that film Crank with Jason Statham? Well, this game feels like that movie. You are trying to stay alive and mull your way through hordes of robots. If that wasn't cool enough, there is this synth vaporwave soundtrack that is an absolute bop to listen to, and that main menu screen, man, every time you boot up the game, oh, so good. Overall, the visual and sound presentation for this game is something that never fails to deliver, making the plethora of enemies that you face all look pretty crazy and fitting within this 80s action era bad guys. And you know, this overall like machines and this like neo future like 80s like vibe, it's like so cool. It harkens to so many different things. Like you feel like you're in like part like Miami Vice, part City Hunter, and then there's this like overall like sci-fi element to it that gives you this weird, like, you know, you feel like you're getting channeling all these different things at once, and it's just, man, this game is so exhilarating, and it is so entertaining of a ride, and it's so committed, and like it is so committed to the aesthetics and its influences, and it wears them on its sleeve. But also, it is in how incredible it meshes these things together, and it makes a really nice and competent and complete package that is just so fun to play as well, as I mentioned earlier with the gameplay elements. But yeah, there is a lot of style and a lot of substance that makes Mullet Madjack just such a enjoyable experience to play. So I touched on this earlier, but I'd just like to dedicate a segment towards this as well, and that is the additional modes that are on offer with Mullet Madjack, because I do feel like they add a lot of replay value to the game, and it is in a large part just due to how fun the overall combat and gameplay loop for this game feels. But more so, I just think that the inclusion of things like an endless mode, for example, where you are acquiring points and you're taking all the different mechanics, hazards, and enemies from all these different levels in the story and having them thrown at you at random, really does feel like a Nuzlocke mode that really makes the game feel like a ton of fun. There's this whole leaderboard that is tied to these modes as well, where you're competing for the highest score, trying to hone in on those core mechanics and inch a second off on every level that you complete, and just trying to get overall the best score and find the most creative ways to kill all these gangster robots and murderous, like, you know, machines. And it's a ton of fun, and I've got to say that this is one of those game modes where if I'm wanting to just kill 10 minutes of time before I need to go out or do something, I'll load this up and see how far I can make it. Spoiler alert, I suck ass, but if you are someone who really does like just the core loop of this game and just likes to see how good you can get, and like, you know, look at games like Neon White where people are just chasing down medals and trying to get their name up on a scoreboard, Mullet Madjack's endless modes, they have a similar type of feeling to that. But it also has another mode as well, which is really interesting, and that is a boss rush mode too, which will have you facing off against different enemies and different bosses from the main campaign. And even it has crossovers with characters like V1 from Ultra Kill as well. And it's cool to see this game getting continuous updates and having a plethora of different like post-game content that can really keep you satisfied and engaged and really just come back and want to play it and have a reason to. It's a cool mode, and overall I think Hammer 95 have done an exceptional job here with this game, and it looks like they're still just adding content to this game and adding new things to it, and I'd be curious to check back in a year and see what else they've added. It's a fantastic experience, and I definitely reckon that if you are an FPS fan, this is one worth checking out. Mullet Madjack is a great experience, and this review hasn't been overly long, and I don't feel it needs to be. If you like what you see, then chances are you will enjoy what you get. This fast-paced shooter, man, it leans into some light roguelike elements, but ultimately it feels like there's a particular flow and rhythm that gets you hooked once you start playing. There's an art style and soundtrack that goes so hard and absolutely elevates the already satisfying gameplay, making this game so distinctive in what it sets out to be and what it achieves. Mullet Madjack is worth checking out if you are looking for a satisfying shooter and a unique aesthetic and a fun variety of side modes to keep you entertained. And if you are starved for content waiting for that next AAA shooter to drop, then Mullet Madjack will satisfy your hunger and keep you really entertained now and into the future. Definitely worth checking out, and man, Hammer95, keep up the excellent work because this game is a banger. Thanks for watching as always, and if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to be putting out a few more over the coming weeks with a few different shooters that I'm not going to name right now, and a few other games as well. So if you like this content, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching as always, and have a good one.